Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few questions. I'll start with, I guess, locally first. And I guess you could go down the row and anyone or everyone can answer. Here in the nation's capital, D.C. recently enacted non-citizen voting, which would allow staff from Chinese and Russian embassies to vote in D.C. elections. The first question is, which I think is fairly obvious, does anyone think this is a good idea? We'll start at the end.
No, it's a terrible idea.
Absolutely not.
No. I'd rather not express an opinion. We're not here to endorse anything with the election center, or, quite frankly, as an election official we administered, we weren't involved with the policy.
Okay. All right. So I guess the next question would be, could allowing members of the CCP and Russian nationals to vote in our elections, and I'll speak not only here but in our country's election, be viewed, you all have institutional knowledge, as foreign interference? And I guess that's a basic yes or no.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course it's foreign interference.
I think it would hurt voter confidence.
I appreciate it. And that's really why the questions are being asked, because the whole point today is to talk about the American confidence in voting. And when you have the nation's capital, which is supposed to be what everyone looks at as the, the representation of this great country, and we're allowing Russian and Chinese staff from embassies to vote in our elections, that's really why the question was asked. So my next question is to Mr. Von Spakovsky. I'm going to bring it back home to New York. So in 2022, a law was enacted in New York City that would have allowed non-citizen voting in local elections if it hadn't been struck down by a state Supreme Court justice that same year. However, other jurisdictions across the country, like Washington, D.C., do allow non-citizens to vote in their local elections. Non-citizens are prohibited by federal law from voting in federal elections. Obviously, back in New York, we're thankful that the state Supreme Court justice stepped in. It has become a city of no rules, as I'm sure many of you have seen on the news. So I'm going to ask you, what actions can election officials take to ensure that non-citizens who are permitted to vote in local elections are not voting in federal elections?
Well, in fact, that's the real problem. Election officials in every state maintain one list of registered voters that are qualified to vote in local elections, state elections, and federal elections. And the absolute only way I know of that you could prevent mistakes from occurring and prevent aliens from voting in those other elections that they're not supposed to be voting in is to have two entirely separate voter registration lists and two entirely separate ballots if you have local elections at the same time on the same day as state and federal elections, because otherwise there's going to be a lot of confusion that exists, for example, on Election Day, and you're going to have bleeding over from local elections into state and federal. I mean, I don't know of any other way to prevent that from happening.
And I agree with you. And Mr. Gloria, no disrespect, that's really why the question was asked, because our whole purpose today is to talk about the American people's confidence in elections. And I think when we're allowing issues like this to take place throughout the country, it is quite a slap in the face to anybody's confidence. Next, I'm Mr. Cuccinelli. I sit as a member of the Homeland Security Committee, and I know during your tenure as part of the Department of Homeland Security, you served as both Deputy Secretary and Principal Deputy and Senior Official performing the duties of the Director of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. Does DHS make its SAVE database available to states to verify a voter's citizenship status?
Technically, yes, but it's been made so thoroughly cumbersome and expensive that it has proven impractical for states to use it. It's only been used twice that I know of, and in those two instances, it was for small samplings of each of those two states.
Okay, so as far as you know, and obviously I'm not going back in all the time of history, but as far as you know, that database has only been used two instances and never during a general election.
Well, I wouldn't characterize it by where in the cycle, because they're continually doing cleaning efforts,
Okay.
or some of them are. Nonetheless, it's only been used twice, ever, and those states didn't come back to use it again. Cumbersome and expensive.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I know my time is up. I yield back.